Great. I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues on the stage to introduce themselves.
I'm Michael Angeli, the National Sales Manager for Piaggio Group Americas.
Josh Marsh, Trade Marketing with Piaggio Group Americas.
Charles Smith, AVP Sales Account Manager with Synchrony.
Heather Weidner, Vice President Marketing with Synchrony.
Great. Well, it is so great to be here with you guys today. Is everyone having a little fun in Vegas? Awesome. All right. So let's get this started. So I'm with Synchrony. And Synchrony, for those who may not know, it's a consumer financial services company that offers a wide range of products, including private label credit cards like the Outdoors card, which you guys may be familiar with, and also consumer installment loans and special financing programs. So today, we're going to start off talking about power sports and motorcycle buyer trends from research that we have done at Synchrony. And then we'll stop there, talk with the panel with any questions that you guys may have. And then the second half is going to be about overall consumer trends. And it's based on the work that we do at Synchrony because we track trends continuously. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with some power sports and motorcycle buyer trends. So in order to ensure that Synchrony and its partners are positioned to maximize growth in power sports and the motorcycle category, we embarked on a research study to understand what customers do on the shopping journey, how they make decisions, where they shop, what's most important in terms of financing, where and how they do research, and the role of brands. So during this research, we spoke to 1,500 buyers and prospective buyers. So we really got a really good read of what's going on in the marketplace. So one thing we heard is that about half of owners take 30 days or more to make a purchase. And the purchase journey really does not look the same for all buyers. But there are some steps that we see that a lot of buyers are taking. And these are kind of good to know because it tells us where to focus efforts on marketing for dealers. So almost half visited a dealer, store, or website. There's so much happening in terms of research online. 43% did online research. 39% researched financing options. And a lot of people, do rely on word of mouth. So about 43% spoke to their friends to get insight. And many, many people, as you guys know, are reading online reviews. So most owners said that they were satisfied with the purchase that they made. And we did a statistical analysis to see what the key drivers were that made consumers satisfied. I think this is pretty interesting. These reasons fell into two main categories. So first of all, in terms of the purchase, they were satisfied with the overall value. These are the things that drive satisfaction, whether they felt they received overall value. The ease of researching the product, and this tells us how important it is to put information out there that's easily accessible and easy to consume. And then the length of the time the whole process took. And then we see on the bottom, actually 3 of the key drivers of satisfaction have to do with financing. So the ease of understanding the financing options available to them was a key driver. And I think this is important because, financing can be a confusing process. So making the information easy to understand is really critical. And then having different financing options available. So an array of options. And then the terms are obviously really important as well, to have good terms for financing options. This was just an average, but the buyers in our study, the average amount they spent was $16,000 for motorcycle for the owners that we spoke to. And we heard some interesting things about the purchase. So 89% of the people we spoke to purchased at the dealership. And the way we recruited from this study, we didn't really speak to people who were purchasing friend to friend. That wasn't really what the purpose of the study was. But, for people who were financing, 89% purchased at the dealership. And 30% purchased on their first visit, which is pretty interesting. 82% bought new. And then here, this is really important, we think, too, is that the majority bought something else like an accessory. So even, I think this is really important because even when people are hesitant to make big purchases, there's always a way to increase the sale or bring people back or engage people on a continual basis through accessories. And then the average percent of the purchase that was financed was 80%, and 54% financed the entire purchase. And we know that research is a really important part of the motorcycle purchase journey. I think this is so interesting. So here are the places that people are doing research when they're looking to buy a motorcycle. And there are 9 places on this list. And only 2 are in person. So I think when the more I look at this list, it really tells me how important it is to focus your efforts on marketing. Because there's so many places on this list that are kind of not right in your, retail space. So, but they're places you really need to focus on in order to build the message. So we know people are visiting dealer websites. They're doing tons of online research, like just through Google search. People went to a dealership in person, but it's only 41%. People are reading online reviews, and there are tons and tons of online video reviews, which are interesting. And if you go on YouTube, these review videos have millions and millions of hits. People are speaking with their friends. And then they're researching financing options, both at the dealer and at their bank. They're watching YouTube videos, and then they're visiting, more than a quarter are visiting social media for the dealership. And I think that's really interesting because you can make such a big impact, even just through social media, but you really have to focus your efforts. And then 23% are reading magazines. So again, if you're looking at the top places that people are going to learn about the category, many of these places require concerted marketing efforts to show up and engage consumers. So 60% are looking at YouTube videos. So, you have to think about how can you be a part of that? How can we of that channel? How can you get your message out there? People are doing internet searches. Can you work on SEO? The manufacturing websites, 41%. How can you link to the manufacturer? And then dealer and store websites, and social media is 34%. And I assume that number is just going to continuously go up. Finally, we asked about what brands they're choosing and why. And the customers that we spoke to said the top 3 brands they are purchasing are Kawasaki, Harley-Davidson, and Honda. And I think it's interesting to look at the top reasons why, because it kind of gives you an insight into the mindset of how people feel about brands and what's important to them. So quality is key. So communicating quality is what you can control. I trust this brand. That has to be an important component of your marketing message. They heard good things about the brand. These are the kind of things you can seed into social media. Is prestigious, people who stand behind their products, and experts in the category. And I think these are interesting to look at because these are all the things that you can build into your marketing messages online, in your social media, and so on. And let's pause there before we go into overall consumer trends. I think we got some, we'll stop for questions. Are there any questions from the audience on motorcycle or power sports buyer trends or any?
If you have a question, you can come right up to the microphones in the aisles there. In the meantime, Heather, here's a good one for you. In the path to purchase, it sounds like the consumer uses the internet in a variety of ways to conduct research. How do you have best practices for website engagement that you can share?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Erica had mentioned that not only are people researching financing, but they're researching product and they're going to websites for information. And a lot of that is the dealer websites that you maintain. So if you think about content and a variety of different types of content, things that people could read, YouTube videos, we're seeing a lot of engagement within YouTube. A lot of times a consumer can be a first-time buyer. So education as well as product information. And then going hand in hand with the financing and the research, having financing options upfront and early while consumers are looking at product, while they're researching the product, the ability to calculate payments, the ability to apply right there while you have their interest in the product that they're looking at. These are some really big key features to your website to keep the consumer engaged and to position yourself as an expert, a leader, and a willingness to share your experiences with them and generate loyalty. Any other comments, gentlemen?
Hello. Yes, I would like you to expand on the accessory part. You were mentioning that people that are purchasing the motorcycles they're trying to bundle the accessories, but you also mentioned a little bit before that the importance of the accessories. Can you expand on that idea, please?
So I think when we look at the entire purchase, especially, walking through the show, we have a great presence of accessories and parts and clothing and all the items that go into this industry. Most states have helmet laws. You're going to take home a new motorcycle. You want to look good. You want to be protected. Part of that, unlike maybe purchasing a new car, you're buying the car, you drive it home. Maybe you've added some back-end products to protect your purchase. But in our industry and what we're doing, it's much more broadly focused with added items of value for that. Maybe it's a legal requirement, a helmet, for example. Maybe in the world of side-by-sides, it needs to be more adapted for a specific purchase or purpose. So the accessories become just as much a part of the purchase. So we want to make sure from our side that customer can build value in that unit, finance it, and include it all into an affordable monthly payment so that we can make that purchase more satisfactory for them and let them really get more out of what it is they're trying to, what their goal is of that purchase.
Yeah, and I think to expand on what Charles said, making that purchase at the time of purchasing the vehicle is obviously the most important. Power sports are fun. We buy cars mostly because we have to. If we're at a dealership and we're walking out with a new motorcycle, we're probably likely to want to put on a new helmet or a new jacket with that, and allowing customers to pack that into the finance deal. Again, keeping a nice low payment, not having to open their wallet and spend $1,000 on a helmet or a jacket. It just adds value to the customer and puts the dealership in a better light for assisting in that process.
But it's also, to your point, we already know that in some situations for a Vespa, which is one of the brands we have, we know that 80% of our customers are going to buy at least 3 accessories for their Vespa. So for us, for the dealership to have the accessories available at time of purchase, it's very important. And also from a dealership's profitability point, which is right now a big discussion going on with a lot of you guys at the dealership level, the profitability with accessories is a lot higher than major units. So it's something that you have to balance the inventory with the right accessories, right? And make sure you have the right amount, but have them available for the time of purchase, because most of the time they're going to be buying those accessories. For me, I prefer if they buy them from you as opposed to going home, trying to put them on, calling you guys back. Hey, can you help me? It's just a nightmare. It's a much better experience when it's fluid at the time of purchase and you guys have the accessories. And often we see when you don't have the accessories, the customer just leaves and he goes and buys them online, which again goes back to a bad customer experience on that side. So whenever you guys have the opportunity to win, even if it's with accessories with the customer, you should take advantage of that, but also balance that inventory management to make sure you're not overloaded with the inventory, the wrong inventory, but also you're profitable on every unit and add that profitability to the bottom line of a dealership, which again is a big concern for you guys.
The only other thing I would add there too is making sure that the consumer is aware of the expanse of accessories that you have in your dealership, because they will buy the helmet, they will buy a warranty, they will buy things at time of purchase, but they're going to go out on that first ride and they're going to have fun and they're going to realize they want something else. They want an upgrade. They want to add something to it. They're going to have to come back for service. So ensuring that you're positioning yourself as the place that they can come back for everything that they need over and over again, and showing them the expanse that you have available, I think is also a key.
Including the accessories in your sales conversation is critical as well. Your teams are product experts and they know what to expect that customer may not even have thought of. So, it's an opportunity to upsell to Mike's point, high margin items. Unit margins are less percentage wise than typically we're looking at accessories and parts and back end products. So, having that stuff in that conversation also helps leading into the finance discussion. Does that payment change when we include those items? Of course, it's going to go up because we're adding to the ticket. When your finance department comes to us to do the deal, they're more prepared so we can understand what that value is and make sure it fits in our advanced structure.
Charles, while you're talking about financing, so we know that a majority of customers finance the majority of their purchases. Don't they already know about financing? I mean, what more can a dealer share about that? And when is the optimal time to talk financing?
So I've been in this industry since I was 18 years old. And it blows me away how often I'm in a store and I hear a customer ask, do you have financing available? How do I pay for this? So sure, it's true. A lot of them do their research. A lot of them understand that there's options out there. Maybe, when we look at the slides that Erica presented, we talk about, these customers are meeting and talking with friends that are hopefully other riders so they can share, hey, my payment is this much or this little. So don't assume that they all have that understanding. I think it's really important to make sure that, we talk about that early in the sales process. And again, there's so much powerful data in the presentation that, we know a large percentage of these buyers only come into the store to make the purchase. Like that one time is the only time they've come into the store. But that's after so much research. They've picked out the model, they've picked out the jacket and the helmet. Everything's kind of lined up, but then maybe they didn't think about how am I going to pay for this? So make sure you have those conversations early. We talk about price and budget. I've got kids, right? And they're starting to drive. They see a fancy new car go down the road. They may not know that car is $100,000 and I can't afford that for them. So, having that realistic level set conversation of what their budget is and how they're going to pay for it. We start talking about payments. Don't shy away from that. That's how we're paying for this stuff the majority of the time. We're writing a check on a monthly basis to pay that payment. So we got to make sure it fits in their budget and make sure that your financing office understands the range of payment terms that'll best fit that customer.
And Michael or Joshua from Piaggio, if financing is discussed earlier in the path to purchase, how do you think that impacts the amount that's financed?
Yeah, it's a complicated question, and there's probably a million ways to answer that. One of the things that I always told dealers, I used to work at a dealership before working at Piaggio for many years, and one of the things I'm trying to get our dealer network to understand, because of the competitive financing that we're able to do with partners like Synchrony, make sure your staff's aware of those promotions, obviously, and challenge your sales staff to understand what monthly payments look like on specific models, especially if there's promos. And they should be able to spit that out to any customer that walks in the door. Granted, you're not going to nail it for every penny to the T, but give them that range so they understand, because most people, they'll see a $599 for 60, but they don't know really what does a $26,000 motorcycle look like at that payment. But if the staff has an understanding of a range to discuss with that customer, it kind of breaks down that barrier, puts the customer at ease, doesn't feel overly salesy, like you're going to take them into the F&I office and lock them in there until they've, extracted every penny out of them.
But a couple of the good promotions that we ran as an OEM were payment-based. So when we said you could be in this bike for as low as, and you're seeing it a lot in the car industry, on Vespa, it was successful. We said you could ride a Vespa for a cup of coffee a day. For less than a cup of a coffee a day. So sometimes, like you're saying early, it could be as simple as you could be riding a $25,000 motorcycle for as low as $359 a month. And that puts it really in perspective for a consumer to say, wow, I never thought I could afford a $26,000 motorcycle. Now, I'm sure by the end, with some fees and some accessories, it's not going to be exactly $350, but promoting the promotion and getting into the consumer's mind that perhaps this vehicle that maybe he dreamed about owning one day, he could be in it for only $359. It gets them thinking and maybe gets them to possibly walk into your dealership and have the discussion, or submit an online lead. So sometimes promoting a promotion, a price, that would say one thing I think from our side we have to do better working with dealerships is promoting the promotion and getting the word out there on specific. And I know a lot of dealerships have a lot of OEMs, and we ask a lot of you guys to do a lot of stuff, and it's challenging, but getting the promotion out there in front of your consumer base, because dealerships or consumers trust the dealerships the most, I would say, is probably the biggest aspect of getting it out there early, the promotion, whether it be by payment or a rate, in my opinion. So
I think having, a payment that's relatable to something that's in somebody's budget already, like you mentioned, less than a cup of coffee a day, it breaks it down to something that we can understand and figure out, like, hey, I can find that in my budget. I can't afford this. Maybe I'll cut back on that one cup of coffee, right? And make that payment. But I think another important piece too is just training with your staff, making sure, we're in an industry where we end up with a lot of new sales staff that are dealing with customers, and maybe they're not quite that comfortable yet talking about payments, having financial conversations, not telling you how to run your business or set up your finance office to handle those, but to make sure they can readily have that general conversation of a range of payments. Does it make sense? Can you afford this in what you budgeted to spend? Then it helps them identify their true budget, what we can purchase. We can make sure the accessories are all included into it, that we can take the bike home that day, hopefully.
To Charles' point, just to close that up, what he said about having the staff train goes back to my point. To be on the sales floor, talking with the customer, standing over a motorcycle, looking at it, and be able to have that conversation of what that price range looks like without having to walk them back to the desk. Let me pull this unit up. Let's put this in. It creates anxiety for customers to do that, and to again casually have that conversation while you're standing on the sales floor, looking at this shiny new motorcycle. You're excited to be there. The minute you walk over to that desk and sit down, everything starts to set in and get real, and you start putting your guard up.
I just had one question about open-ended accounts or open accounts, like card-based. I know you mentioned the outdoor card that you guys have. Is there any thing coming down the line that would allow like major units to be put on that? Because I think it's easy for a customer to, obviously he can purchase accessories, at the time on an installment loan, but, it'd be nice to be able to say, hey, you can come back, you have this open to buy. If you're thinking about the warranty, you can purchase it, in a couple months or right before the warranty ends. But I think it's a lot easier, especially in this, people understand credit cards and how they work a lot more than I think they understand the installment side. So That's for the Synchrony guys. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. Anytime we launch a new product, there's always an evolution of that product. There's always things that you don't account for in your, no matter how good your planning is, there's always something that comes up. Sometimes it's an opportunity for that presented itself because there's an opening that was created in the market. So for us, it's something that we're looking into. Today the card is set up for credit lines up to $5,000 and for non-VIN related purchases. So there's a lot of e-bikes here, for example, so we can do that product. If there's a go-kart that's not a VIN number but maybe a serial number around the holidays, some of those items are already in. Able to be financed using the card, but it's definitely an area we're looking at, especially for some of the smaller ticket prices. It's definitely a good opportunity there.
So for Erica or Heather, Google searches are king, right? What's higher than Google searches? Well, YouTube searches are higher than Google searches. Is anyone surprised by that?
A little bit
I was.
Well, we're seeing it a lot from a marketing perspective. We've started to do a lot of social media marketing, direct to consumer acquisition in our space. And we are seeing way more engagement with YouTube and YouTube videos and, how-tos and experiential that comes out of YouTube that you don't get in the static Google searches. So people will Google and then YouTube will come up. And that's where they'll click and engage. And so the key for us, especially with some of the testing that we've done, as we get out there, we're testing 15-second clips, 30-second clips, 60-second clips. And we're kind of seeing that sweet spot right in the 30 seconds. But where it gives you the opportunity to create an energy that people get from writing and from being out in the outdoors and enjoying their sport. And so you can create similar energy in the YouTube space that you just can't create from static, whether it's display ads or whether it's Google searches. So I think more and more people are really relying in that space. So while it was a little bit of a surprise, it wasn't a surprise at all.
Synchronization has been quite a problem in dealerships recently, particularly since Lightspeed has separated all of the departments and made them all stand on their own. I don't know if I'm in the right forum for this conversation or not, but when you get to the F&I office and the F&I guy knows you're good for $20,000 and the bike's $15,000, his goal is to sell you $5,000 worth of paper. That kind of screws up the relationship with the accessory department. Do you have any conversation in regards to that?
Yeah, so recently we changed our advanced structure and numerous things went into that process. Some of it was speed. We wanted to be able to decision faster. We want to be able to capture that whole deal like we're talking about with those products, whether it's F&I office or the accessories. So the way we set it up now, there's an advance, say a partner program like we have with Piaggio. It's 155% of the unit. And within that 155% covers the finance office for the products that they may be offering, your tax tag, title, license. And then we have a separate bucket for those bolt-on items and accessories so that they can't cross over and take that advanced possibility. Your accessory and parts department would still have that look. Does that make sense?
One more comment, I guess, about the payment buyer versus the cash buyer, because we don't know the answer to that question until we have a casual conversation with the dealer or with the customer. So trying to identify one versus the other before we've got to a unit seems to me a little bit of a good opportunity to create some anxiety beyond whether he can afford the payment or not. Any comments with that regard?
It's definitely something that you'll handle at your dealership. I think for us, what we've seen is bringing that earlier into the conversation, whether it's before identifying the unit or not. That's going to be something you guys can sort through. And it's also that every customer is a little bit different. That conversation maturity may be different from one salesperson and one customer to the next. But at the same time, with the brands these gentlemen offer, we've got some bikes that are in the mid $20,000 range. And if we're going through features and benefits in our sales process on an RSV4 factory, but the buyer's got a $150 payment, so there's got to be a little bit of some light conversations about, hey, here's our price, here's an approximate payment, that might help ease into that conversation. But I was always a big fan of role play. It's always a little bit awkward in store with staff, but take those moments, do the training, and come up with some ways that can be creative for you to uncover and unpack that without making somebody's blood pressure go up and early on in the conversation. Does that help?
Well, it's a little bit, it's kind of interesting from the Vespa side of things, because we have a specific consumer that's a little bit higher income, and sometimes they'll come in there with the idea that, hey, I'm just going to buy this thing cash. And if your sales staff and you work on asking the questions and walking through, and then you happen to go through also the finance incentives that are out there right now. Hey, they have 199 for 48 or 199 for 60. All of a sudden, some of these people that were going to pay cash, they'll say, hey, I'm going to hang on to my cash and I'll just finance it. So through the questioning, and I think that's something that a lot of dealerships have to work on with their staff as of lately, is just going through the questioning when you're with the customer, and also presenting the options to the customer, because that's the most important thing. There are a lot of options from the financing side to the cash and to the vehicle. So
Up after this one.
Go ahead.
That's exactly what just happened to me when I bought a truck. I went in and bought a truck. I was going to pay for the daggone thing. I certainly had to still go to the F&I office to talk about extended service and all the other paper stuff. By the time he got done breaking down the interest rate versus what I was getting on the money I already had, I financed the truck. So that's exactly the right way to do it, I think. It's because when you're talking to a customer about a $30,000 motorcycle, he can see pretty soon that he can't afford it. He's probably going to bring that conversation forward rather than you having to drop the dime on him. So that's it for me. Have a nice day.
The only thing I would add to your comment too is that you have a huge tool set in opportunities, whether it's pricing or whether it's low interest rates. And it's just a matter of saying, we have a wide range of financing options for you. We have a wide range of product on the floor. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, whether it's around, financing the vehicle, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be intense out of the gate, just for them to know. Because sometimes a consumer doesn't know that you have, Synchrony, banks, credit unions, a whole wide variety of options, or that the loan is going to be, special finance rates from the manufacturer. So if you just kind of throw it out, like, we can help you with anything you need and make it a really casual, light introduction, then they'll process that as they go through the showroom floor.
It reinforces what these two gents have said too. Having your staff be aware and know the promotions. If there's something special, it doesn't matter if we're driving through a convenient fast food place, and there's a 2 for $5 special. They're going to tell you about it. When you're running 0 for 36 months on Vespa, like, that's a big deal. When the customer comes in, make sure you let them know, hey, we've got, maybe there's an accessory package available at a great price, or there's financing available. Plant that seed to help unpack some of those pain points.
And some of the research that you guys have done and data suggests that people are less and less concerned about the recession that never happened. But that doesn't change the fact that they're still holding on to their money, right? So financing becomes very, very important. And we have to get back to the pre-pandemic days of how we ran our dealerships and ran our businesses. If the rate's good and it's not offensive to you, finance it. This gives you a buffer zone. We're already here, so we're already interested. And you can kind of take that worry about this major purchase that I'm about to do because I'm financing. I got a nice payment. I'm okay. If something bigger happens and I have to take care of it, I have my money in the bank.
So another question. You were discussing that the average expenditure is about $16,000. Could you place a percentage of what percentage of those $16,000 refers to, say, accessories and then financing and everything else? Do you have something in mind?
So what you're asking, of the 16,000, maybe 15,000 was the bike and 1,000 was accessories. It varies. Overall, we have that data, of course, but it varies so much by product type. Some vehicles are inherently adding more accessories to them. The product type allows for that. And we also have a lot of models that are coming out that are very highly equipped from the factory, deluxe models, and there's not as much to add. So I'd say I'll leave it at that. It's going to vary greatly by the product type. Even among the types of motorcycles, there's not as many accessories typically sold with, say, a dirt bike as a touring bike. There's more options and things available there. So tough one to answer off the cuff, but really it's just going to vary.
Charles, while you have the mic there, about customer satisfaction and what drives it, we saw that the top 6 drivers, or out of the top 6 drivers, 3 of them are finance related, but not one of them was price. What about that?
Yeah, I loved it to see that, actually. I mean, that's one thing we've always faced, is the fear of, it's a price driven purchase. I mean, of course there's a budget and there's a price associated with that, but what the data is showing us is that consumers really are looking for value, whether it's, the quality of the product. We saw that data. But a lot of it too is the relationship they're building with the store. Does the store offer an easy way to do business, something that's going to respect their time, help them get in and out? Can they go to their website, do the research, find these things that are making them move further along in their journey to purchase? Manufacturers' websites and the content that they're producing. So it all drives into that. But the key piece for that was we didn't really hear anything about price. So most people have decided they want to be in this. We're in a lifestyle industry. People enjoy what we get to call fun. And so they know there's an inherent cost, but they want to maximize what they're getting out of that. So value really means a lot more in that purchase than just the price.
He's right. Working in this industry has turned me into a better consumer. When I went and bought a truck in 2019 for work, the sales guy at the dealership was kind of fell over because I just told him, "This is the truck I'm interested. This is my monthly budget. What can we do?" It was the easiest purchase of a vehicle I ever had, and I know the dealership and the salesperson was happy, but again, I came in with a budget in mind, and again, probing and asking those questions to the customers it makes all of our lives easier.
Well, Charles' point with the dealerships focusing on the value, I think in a time where you have a little bit additional inventory at the dealership level, you're competing against your fellow dealerships that probably 2 years ago, you didn't have to do it. What is your identity as a dealership? What is your dealership's brand? And how do you build that value so that way when that customer comes into your dealership, it's not necessarily about the price. And to your point, people will pay more to feel safe and secure. So they'll pay more if they know the person at the dealership is taking care of them. Hey, I'm going to take care of you. You don't have anything to worry about. They're more inclined to come back to that dealership to make their purchase because they know that they're going to be taken care of. And there's a dollar, whether we discuss it or not, there's a dollar in their head that encompasses that safety feature. I'd rather go to that dealership even if I'm going to pay more because I know that they're going to take care of me. That dealership is the best servicing dealership around. I'm always going to go to that dealership. That's their brand. They take care of me, or they have the best sales staff there. It's non-threatening. It's a very comfortable setting. You could be a dealership that always does events. It's what is your brand? And if I always say, and we say to Josh all the time, if a dealership doesn't have a brand, we often see some correlation regarding their sales because what is their real identity? What are they known for? And even when I do a lot of dealer visits, I say to the dealerships, what are you really known for in this area? Are you known for service? Are you known for doing events? How do you really build your value? If you're a dealership that struggles to answer those questions, it's probably something you want to sit down and say, maybe we need to work on this. Maybe we need to decide, do we want to focus on the service side? Do we want to focus on having the most accessories? And we come here to shop for accessories. And all of those add value and add reasons for a consumer to come and buy that vehicle from you as opposed to going for the lowest price possible. And I don't want to be in an industry where everyone's racing to the bottom because in the end, all the dealerships get mad at me because I need to sell you some vehicles. You guys have to sell the vehicles to the customers. And I don't want to be in a situation where everyone's going to the bottom line and your margins are eroding, my margins are eroding. And in the end, if you guys aren't making money, we're not going to survive. So we all have to get a little bit better, including the OEMs as well. But to circle back, I think adding a brand identity to your dealership and focusing on what you're really good at will only add value and stop the price conversation. Especially now, I think it's more important than ever with the amount of inventory that you guys have taken on. So.
Great discussion. Just want to make sure something's on the radar as it is in automotive. The new FTC cars ruling that's out there right now, that's going to be enacted in July, pertains to pricing and payments. And as you're quoting price and payments, it needs to include fees, everything. The payment you quote needs to be the transaction payment, meaning if you're going to quote a payment, it's not going to be an estimated payment. It's not going to be a range of a payment. It's got to be the payment. So then the CFPB, as everybody knows, is going to enforce this, and it's a $50,000 infraction for each time. So OEMs, the lenders, and dealers, especially on the auto side, are like, this is a big deal right now. So it's just something to put on your radar.
Thank you.
Erica, do you have some more slides for us?
I do. We're going to wrap it up with overall consumer trends. And I think there's some interesting things we're seeing so far this year that I'll share with you guys. So way back when the pandemic started, we have about 100 different private label credit cards at Synchrony. We work on multiple brands from Amazon to PayPal to Lowe's, and we were really stumped with what are consumers going to do? What are they going to buy? How are they going to change their spending habits? What are their behaviors going to be like? So at that time, we started to do a monthly tracker where we speak to 1,000 consumers every single month. And these consumers are recruited to match the US Census in terms of demographics, so in terms of gender, where people live, household income, and so on, so we could get a really clear picture of what the US consumer is thinking about, future outlook, finances, where they're spending and where they expect to spend and how they're going to feel about the future. And I think this has been a really, really interesting project to work on. And I think we're seeing something pretty interesting in January that I'm going to take you guys through. So overall sentiment really does have a very big impact on how much and what consumers spend on. So when we asked consumers in January of 2024 about their current sentiment and how they feel about the next 12 months, what we're seeing is optimism. And this is something kind of new in our tracker, and we've been doing this for 4 years. We're seeing optimism about the future, about their personal life, professional life, their emotional and mental well-being, and even their physical health. So we're seeing a lot of renewed optimism this year. And we know some of the reasons really is that, the unemployment rate is really low. Inflation rates have come down, and even consumer sentiment, as measured by the Confidence Board in the U.S., is actually at its 2-year high. So we're seeing a lot of optimism. We also ask consumers to think about their finances specifically now and in the future. And what we're seeing is that while consumers are feeling optimistic today, their outlook, when we ask them about what they expect for the next 12 months, is going up. So if you see on the green bar and the bluish bars, 55% feel really optimistic that they have enough money to make ends meet, but they expect increased optimism in the future. And this is kind of new in our tracker that we're seeing this. 46% expect to have enough money to have fun, and they're very optimistic about that. And they expect to be, more than half expect to feel this way in the future. So we see optimism for this coming year appears to be going up. And then when we look at pessimism, we track pessimism around inflation, the national economy, and changing federal interest rates. And we see that pessimism is decreasing. Expected pessimism for the future is decreasing. And this type of positivity is going to impact spending. And we're going to show you how. We've also been asking about a worry about the recession. And we've been asking this question every month since 2022. And what we see really interestingly is that in January of this year, worry is at an all-time low about a coming recession. Only 6% are more negative than positive about the possibility of an upcoming recession. And of course, this is going to impact how consumers spend this year. We also see that consumers are less stressed about the ability to make ends meet. So last year at this time, 1/4 of people were stressed about it, and now it's down to 20%. So what you're seeing here on this page is where they're going to be spending more. So they're going to be spending more in dining. If you see the black bar, that's how much they plan to spend in the next 60 days on the left-hand side versus the green, which is a year ago. So more people are planning to go out to eat. More people are planning to spend on apparel and clothing, accessories, pet, entertainment, healthcare, all of these things. And I will say, when we looked at motorcycle, we did not see this type of optimism. So what I'm trying to tell you is that they're really optimistic, but not necessarily on all types of purchases. So what you see here is that just slightly more than 1/3 of consumers expect to hold off on making a large purchase this year. So this is something really important that we just want to share. So despite all these big increases in overall and financial optimism, we still see some consumers, 1/3, are being cautious about making large purchases. And we're calling this cautious optimism. So for the power sports and motorcycle categories, we also know we're coming off record growth, which is not sustainable. So consumers are spending, but they're spending carefully, and they're carefully considering purchases. And we put together, we'll on the next page, I think this is a good place to end and open it up for any more questions. We put together some key takeaways on strategies and tactics to keep customers engaged, to grow sales and drive traffic, even despite cautious optimism. So one idea, and I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit, is community and local engagement. And this is something anyone could do. There's, for example, holding events and, giving away free donuts, or ways to really engage your customers, giving away free air gauges, mapping local riding areas. There are ways to do it that are not expensive, and there are ways to really keep people engaged. So while they may not be, ready to make a big purchase, they can buy accessories and all these things. You can keep them engaged, raise revenue through service. Also, we're saying we focus on affordability and transparency early in the sales process is a good way to mitigate any possible declines that we might see coming on big purchases. We can ensure online and in-store are the same. So no surprises on online only pricing. We can, solidify the reputation of a dealership by asking for top rated referrals. This just takes a focused effort. It's not necessarily, a cost to the business. And leveraging industry partners and resources for in-store events or training is a great way to engage consumers, build repeat purchases, grow revenue. And sales is really not the only revenue producing department. So again, service and keeping people engaged and coming back. And with that, we can just open it up to any questions you guys have here or any comments.
Charles, I'm going to pick on you. You're just so pickable. So if worries about a recession are at an all-time low, and consumers are feeling great, general outlook on life is good, why are you anticipating a slowdown in big purchase spending?
I think part of it is, Erica mentioned we had record growth the last few years. We've had this COVID spike of sales. We pulled ahead a lot of purchases, brought riders into the industry that maybe we've never had. Maybe they returned. So maybe they don't need a new bike next year. I mean, we all hope they need that, but maybe it's new in the garage still. Maybe they're not using it as much as they thought they would. So I think it touches on some of the ideas of how do we engage with those customers, increase their ridership. The more miles they're putting on, the more accessories they're buying, the more parts they're buying, the more service they're using you guys for, the more often they're in the dealership, the more likely they are to see the shiny new model that just released. So hopefully that drives additional sales and opportunities. But I think a lot of it is just really conversations we were having prior to hopping up here, things that worked in the past. Maybe they get tweaked a little bit, but having those meetups on Saturday morning, being the local spot for the riding group to start and maybe end the day, give them a reason, a few bucks for some donuts. Leveraging your partners in this business. We're all connected in this together. Field sales staff, your OEM reps, your parts reps, they're great resources too that can help really make the return process for those customers more enjoyable. Take advantage of what they're there to help you with.
Again, to expand on what Charles said, during the pandemic, everyone was just trying to keep up, right? Whether it was I couldn't even get inventory. Everybody was paying MSRP, sometimes above MSRP. Dealers were busy. You just wanted to turn them and burn them, get them out, get on to the next customer. And during that time, to his point, a lot of dealerships lost that ability to interact with those customers and show them that this is your clubhouse. This is your safe base. This is to keep them engaged. So we sent all these new motorcyclists, because a lot of these purchases were new motorcyclists, which is what this industry needs more than ever. Motorcyclists, once you become a real motorcyclist, it's very unlikely that you leave that hobby, that sport, that passion. And a lot of people that purchased during those couple of years were new customers. If you just turned them and burned them for whatever reason, because you had to, because you were just so busy, or you were just staring at dollar signs and wanting to get on to the next deal, you left them out in the weeds. They don't have friends. They don't have the community. They don't know what they can do with that purchase. So to Charles's point, a lot of these products are sitting in dealerships. We're seeing low mileage inventory coming back 1 or 2 years later to be traded in, or can you just buy this because I'm not using it? I cannot stress enough how much dealers need to bring that back. We're acting like it was 20 years ago. It was 2 years ago. Just rewind the clock. Go back to what you were doing 3 years ago, and let's get after it. And I think we'll weather this unforeseen storm just fine. Some of the other things we're doing as Piaggio Group is we're doing experiential events, where and that goes back to the whole YouTube and social media thing. We want to show consumers the things that we're doing with our products and giving them something aspirational to shoot for. They're intimate. It's not 100 people going on these trips, but they're trips of a lifetime. And it seems this new generation, they're so switched on to social media, and they just live in these 30-second intervals. We're seeing that we're getting some traction with this, and more our events sell out sooner. When's more? We're adding more and more just to meet the demand.
So one thing I will add to that, because you touched on it, is the experience piece of it. And the generation that's coming up is so focused on the experience and what they're going to feel and what they're going to get from it. And so it goes way beyond the metal, right? It goes into, how is it going to make me feel? What am I going to get out of it? Who am I going to meet? And it is that emotion and that experience, which is why you're seeing all of those sellouts, I'm sure. So if you keep that in your mind as you're thinking about your dealership and creating a space where you're sharing those experiences, Charles touched on the, Saturday morning rides and stuff. If you're bringing in an environment where you can share the recent trail you did, share some photos, talk to the customer about like, where do you like to ride? What do you like to do? Maybe it's a place you haven't been before, and being able to share that back and forth and encouraging the experience over and over again. That is what the younger generation coming through is all about.
And you can finance all that fun.
Any final comments?
Thank you all for being here. We enjoyed sharing the information. You're a great audience.
Thanks, everybody.